My name is Kathy Harris, and I am the lead organizer for Proactive and our president for our Grand Rapids chapter of A. Philip Randolph, which is a labor organization. We wanted to come to you today to talk to the young people. And if we have more join in, I'll just let them all in and they can chime in and answer questions or give some ideas as they need to. But we want to get your ideas. We want to talk about what is it going to take for our young people to get involved with this voting process. This is an important election year, and we want to make sure that you all are involved with it, whether it's encouraging others to vote, encouraging your family members to vote, or just registering and helping us get the word out there, the importance of voting and how it affects you. So I'm going to turn this over to our moderator, Mr. Rodney Brown, and I'll let him introduce himself, and then we can go from there. Okay? I'm going to be quiet through this whole process unless someone have a question for me. Thank you. And thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Harris or Kathy, for this opportunity to work with Proactive and to help facilitate some dialogue and exchanges with our young people. Again, my name is Rodney Brown. I'm a local community organizer, social entrepreneur, educator, who loves the process of politics. My background is in political science. My formal education is in political science, and have taught political science for a while for a time at Grand Rapids Community College. And so to be asked to facilitate a dialogue with young people and others around the political process is a great honor. I really look forward to hearing your voices and learning through the process as well. I don't have an agenda written out that speaks to how this conversation will go. However, I'll do my best to ask some questions, but even more so, again, just to hear what you all are thinking about politics and voting in this election cycle, and with everything that is happening in our communities. So I'm hoping that by way of introduction, that you all will just take, as I just did, just a few minutes to introduce yourselves. And I apologize in advance if I don't get a name right, but I think I can read all of your names here. So I'll just, kind of go through and try to catch everyone. And just by way of introduction, if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself, and just that initial prompt, the question around, you're welcome to lean in early, around what do you think about voting and or all that is happening. Certainly can make that a part of your introduction, but take a few minutes to introduce yourselves and maybe press on that first prompt. So if we could, I'm just going to look at you by order of how I see you on the screen. So it looks like Asia St. Tard, and again, I apologize if I don't say your name right, but Asia, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Asia St. Tard. I am a makeup artist at Charity Christine Salons, located in Grand Rapids. What I feel about the movement and voting right now, I feel like it's crucial for us to get out there and do our part. We are coming together all over the country and we're fighting for our rights and solidarity. So we need to get out and vote in solidarity, especially young people, because we have the mentality of thinking our vote doesn't matter, our vote doesn't count, but indeed it does count. So I believe that we do need to be out there, and we need to, do more events for young people to get out to register to vote so they can feel like they're involved, and more planning.
More planning. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Asia. Cabre Beatty, how you doing, young man? Can you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Kaber Beatty. I'm a high school student at Grand Rapids Christian High School. And I think that it's very important for us to vote at this moment. Even though I'm not old enough to vote, I still feel like I can influence other people that can vote. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here, to see how I can do that.
Thank you. How do you pronounce your name again?
Kaber.
Cabra. Okay, thank you, Cabra. All right, Evan Lachey.
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Yes, sir. Please introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Evan Terrence Lachey. I am a community member of Grand Rapids, involved in a lot of things, so I won't spend a lot of time explaining that. But as far as the necessity for us to vote, I think it's paramount that our voices are heard, not only in the streets, but also on those sheets of paper that we're supposed to bubble in the fall. I think one of the misnomers, though, that come along with our generation is that there's two things. One, that we're miseducated, but two, that we don't care. I would like to say that there is a group of us who are educated in the voting process and are very active citizens, but on a mass level, I would say that there's a miseducation about voting and what that process looks like. So I think the solution to that is forums and conversations just like this, so to raise awareness. And I would say the other thing too, I think that we miss out on, or that we don't spend enough time talking about, is the elections for our local and state government, not just the things that are on the federal level. Because while voting for the president of the United States is important, the president doesn't make all the decisions by themselves. There's congressmen, there's senators, there's House of Representatives, there's city commissioners, there's all of these positions that our voice needs to be heard in those decisions, because that makes a really big difference. So I'll agree with some of the things that have been said. I think that there needs to be more events. I had an event planned, but then Corona came and said, not this year. So we're gonna have to try and figure out how we can do it. But it was a concert that was gonna have a couple hundred young adults from all over the state, and we were going to be registering us to vote at this event. So I think more things like that and more efforts to really push people to be involved in that decision-making process of who do we want to represent us, and not just picking who has the nice commercials, whose voice, oh, that name sounds familiar, but no, actually knowing who people are and what their stances are, so that our vote matters, because people fought for years for us to be able to do that. So I think it's important for us to participate.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Evan, for sharing. Absolutely. Hey, before we go to another to introduce themselves, just want to acknowledge Dan Hess is helping us, and I hope I said your name right, Dan. But Dan Hess is helping us through some of the technology and is hosting this on behalf of Proactive and under Kathy's direction. So thank you for being here with us, Dan. Next we have, if Christian, it looks like your mic is muted, but Christian Beatty, if you would please introduce yourself as well.
So my name is Christian Beatty. I'm senior at Grand Rapids Christian High School. And I'm here because I was informed by Ms. Harris that you're having this discussion. And I think it's actually very important that people that can vote can go out and vote. And I'm not old enough to vote yet. However, it's important to vote because, as we've seen across the country, people coming together and wanting change, but change doesn't come from just speaking out. You have to actually go vote for the people that can make a change.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Christian. Hey, you know what? In my introduction, I started out by saying, that again, my degree is in political science. I love the idea of politics as a science, and I think Evan, to your point about the misnomers that are out there about young people not being informed. I'm certainly not one who believes that misnomer. I think that our young people are about as informed of any generation that we've seen. But there are some nuances of understanding politics, of which I do, before we get into some of the more exchanges, just want to give you a definition of what I understand and what I've taught around what politics means. And politics is a process to determine who gets what of so-called limited resources. And now the key there, I think, in understanding that is the nuance of the word limited, so-called limited resources. But I just think that we all, in the work that we're doing, young people especially, but each of us must understand that the voting that we do, the advocacy that we do is towards a resource. It's towards an interest in a resource that we're trying to gather. In many ways, that resource could just be time. That resource could just be voice. So I would say this and then get into a question that within the space of politics right now, here locally, nationally, that we've seen your generation really take strong stances around sharing your voice and your expectations with local officials in response to the horrific death of George Floyd, but just overall the response that local governments or non-response that local governments are doing with our communities. And so with that being said, would anyone like to speak to that point of voice? I know, Asia, you did a rally that you organized, a silent march for solidarity. So maybe you can speak to just this idea of getting your voice heard as a young person in this space, which I'm going to assume is new for most of you. You know, maybe not Evan, but you know, for most of you, it may be new for you to be in this public political space. Asia, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, this is actually very, very new to me. I decided to plan our march because I felt like Grand Rapids definitely need to see a change, definitely needs to see a change. We live among, I feel like, the most racist people ever. And to get my voice to be heard, I felt like I needed to be out there because a lot of us, if we're just going to sit at home and do nothing, our voice is not going to be heard. Um, I feel like, honestly, and I have to be honest, since all this has been taking place, I don't feel like they're trying to hear us. And I feel like we need to keep doing what we're doing. And I feel the momentum is going down. So I feel like we do need to be still out there and marching and making sure our voices are heard, because I feel like they're trying to shut us out. Like they're easing into it.
Yes, yes. Would there be anyone who'd like to add to that? Well, you know, even before we go there, it looks like we have two others that have joined our call. It looks like Savannah Baker. Savannah, I don't know if you'd like to introduce yourself or if you're just an observer there. And then I know my fraternity brother Mike is there somewhere as well. And I don't know if that brother wants to interject as well, but
yeah,
okay.
I'm Savannah.
Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, hi, I'm Savannah. I go to Grand Rapids Christian High School. I go to Grace for Nation Church with Evan Lachey, and my mom was the one who wrote about this, and I read it for him. So yeah.
Okay. Well, welcome, Savannah. Hey, yeah, thank you. Would anyone like to press on this piece that Asia kind of started with when she says that, and again, I'm a paraphrase, but just made the point that sometimes you feel that they don't hear you or try not to hear us in your voice at this time. How do young people overcome that particular feeling when they feel as if, again, elders or political leaders are not hearing them? How does that make young people feel? Christian, please.
I would say that I know that feeling from going to Grand Rapids Christian. It's a predominantly white institution, so being one of the few Black students there, when you get that feeling, it's kind of discouraging because it's not like we have very few Black teachers, so you don't really have a lot of people you can go to. You don't have a lot of you can't really go to any friends maybe because you might be the only Black student in your classroom. So it's just a sense of just discouragement and just feeling kind of scared because you don't know what you can do or what you can't do. So you have to kind of just sit there and you don't know what to do after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Would anyone like to add to that point that Christian made? Well, let me try to bridge that. Oh, go ahead, Evan. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. To both of the points that have been made, I think that I think it's, if I could just offer a thought, that I think it's not so much that we aren't being heard, because I think they hear us because they say stuff about us and what we're doing, but they're not listening. You know, I hear the cars driving down the street, but I'm not listening to them. So I think that we're hearing, but it's just noise. And I think that that's a twofold issue. I think one, there's a level of strategy that we have to have in those that are raising our voice. Because unfortunately, we have to have the extra burden of having to navigate people's fragility and have to navigate people's inability to sift through emotion and hear the fact. I think sometimes we're dealing with the community, and I'm trying to be as politically correct and as diplomatic as possible, but we deal with the community, especially in Grand Rapids, where they're more uncomfortable with the yelling than what we're actually saying. And so I think that it's definitely a fight, but we have to be strategic in how we fight. If a boxer who fought with their fist showed up to a samurai fight, they'll lose because the samurai think strategically. They approach that fight completely different. And I think a lot of times from young people, and honestly, I'm young as well. I think sometimes we show up to a samurai fight ready to box. And because we have all the energy, we're ready to go. And if it was a boxing match, we'd give you the hands and we would win. But because we're fighting something that's so much larger and is so much deeper, there's a level of strategy that we have to take. I think back to historically in the 60s when the student leadership groups came together, like SNCC and John Lewis, those guys that came together, they organized a lot like what Asia did. They organized and came together to plan out what they were doing so that, and then they prepared, okay, this is what we're going to do if the police show up. This is what we're going to do if people try to come and hijack our movement. This is what we're going to do if, and I think social media has been a great help, but it also has been a detriment because social media shows a lot of the ignorance and it shows a lot of the rah-rah that happens, but doesn't so much show the unity before that. I was at the really big rally that went on, and I left around 8:30. And then all the looting happened at night. There wasn't as much footage of the diverse population that showed up and all of the great people and families and children that were there standing in solidarity. But the news and all the things that we heard about was what happened afterwards. So I think, that social media piece is huge, but I think strategy and intentionality are paramount when it comes to making sure that they are listening to us and not just hearing us.
Thank you. Thank you, Evan. Anybody would like to add to that, push on that thought that Evan just shared? Just that idea of, again, I think to Age's point that folks may hear, but they're not listening. I'll push on this though with young people, being an educator myself and a dad, that I often tell young people how important their voices are, but I often also ask for evidence. And I think in our classrooms, I try to be consistent relative to if we're sharing an opinion from something that we read. Often our teachers will say, well, cite your evidence. One of the things I can appreciate from what you said, Evan, where you talk about strategy and the importance of strategy, is that you were able to use some evidence of what happened before when you talk about the Student Nonviolence Coordinating Committee with John Lewis and such, and whereby they were a lot more strategic. So let me ask that to the group, because often, as much as young people will say that, they don't hear us, or in the nuance where you say, Evan, they may hear but they don't listen. What are some of the things that you would want local officials and or people who are older in other generations, what can they do better in order to hear you and or to listen to you. And I'd say from the classroom through to the political space in terms of having your voice heard out in the community. What are some things that people can do to be better to listen to our young people or hear our young people? Anybody want to take that on? You hear that question, Savannah? You want to take that on? What are some things that people can do? Or Christian, you spoke to your voice at your high school, where maybe you have some things you want to say that people are not hearing. What can people do? What can you do? What can we do as being older to listen better or hear you more? You want to say something?
I know from experience at our school, I go to the same school as Christian, and people, they try to make a change, and we had a situation this year at our school where someone said some racial things, and the whole school kind of wanted to make a change because we're a Christian school. So they started making slow changes, and they were like they said, they're hearing us, but they were slowly trying to make changes because they knew there was an issue. But when it came down to it, the issue was never solved because they could hear what we were saying, but they weren't like fully willing to make that change because I guess maybe because we're younger African American kids, so we're at a smaller population, and so they're more just hearing our things, and they're only making changes to things that would be easy for them to change instead of just changing everything that we thought needed to be changed. So that's just my opinion.
Okay, yeah, thank you for sharing that.
I would like to add on to that. So with that situation that happened at our school, one thing that they did do to basically hear us but not making changes was they had us all come in different groups and sit with this person and just talk about how it made us feel, yet nothing else changed. It just was the same, no different reaction. All we did was just talk about how we felt for basically the remainder of the school year. Never really got it, nothing really changed. And we had also other different quote unquote political scandals that happened within our high school through social media and even in person that just got blown away. It's like forgotten about.
Mm-hmm. Are there within the institution? I'm sure there's individuals that that you as students may have built a level of trust and communications with, be it teachers or administrators or support staff. How do you feel, even through your frustration, I would say, of just sharing your feelings and then not feeling heard? How do those individuals engage with you? Those that you trust will try to guide you as adults. How do they respond, Christian?
So with me, they responded in a manner of more of a like, well, at least they're trying. Then they don't try to push it even more to actually get a reaction. They just say, at least they tried. Maybe next time something will happen. But it's just always and they can understand our frustration, but they can't really, or they don't attempt to move anything forward.
Yeah, they try to be understanding to us, but the issue is that they don't want to make other students, Caucasian students, uncomfortable about our situation. So they're hearing and they'll say like they're all these things that they're gonna change and how they see the big picture and that we're doing these little things now, but the big picture, it's gonna make a big difference. They say all that stuff because they think they're pleasing us then, but say the students who already graduated last year, they saw zero change. All we ever did was complain about our problems, but we were being heard, but nothing in the greater picture was changing. Everything was still going back to that same thing. The girl who made these bad comments that got posted all over social media that caused our school to really blow up and have racial tension was she didn't come to school for a couple of weeks or days, and then she came back and life for her was pretty normal after that. So a lot of African American kids were just frustrated about that, and yeah, it was just kind of messy, I guess.
Mm-hmm. You know what, I would anticipate with you and your voices that to that point that Evan made, that you all are thinking through whatever's transpired and maybe going in with a plan for the coming school year, be it online or be it in person. Is that some strategy or thoughts that you guys are thinking through, or Savannah, Christian, Cabre? Are you guys thinking about some different things that, because I'm one who believes that as well, as much as, you know, we expect leaders to do something for us, that back to that point of strategy, I believe big in what's called peer accountability. And I know I have some friends that believe as I believe, and how do I get together with them and do, again, as Evan suggests and as people have done, strategize about how am I going to make a difference. So are you all doing that? Are you connected around some of the things that you want to see change at your school? Savannah, you're nodding your head. You do? What do you think?
Yeah, and we had, I was there work on like racial equality and things like that in our school. So he was the one who really was talking to us, trying to what we were saying. Yeah, I remember. What did you say again? Sorry.
No, you broke up really well. Really bad there. Asia, you're shaking your head up there. Help us transition this. What are some of the things that, as young people address challenges, not feeling heard, want to overcome organization or institutional obstacles? What are some things that they can do? And then, Asia, if you answer that, Mrs. Harris is going to follow up with the question. Can you help us out, Asia?
Sure. Maybe more organizations within the school. I've been out of school for a long time, like 10 years. I don't really know. More coming together within that, and maybe they can see it. Well, you know how they get uncomfortable when they see change. They only like to keep you comfortable. They do changes to keep you like a little comfortable, but they won't really change anything. So I think it's up to you guys to really put your foot down and request real change or push forward with it.
Yeah. Asia, that was a great recommendation. It really was. And it's a great segue into Mrs. Harris's statement as an organizer herself. But absolutely, organizations within schools is a solution in terms of bringing about that peer accountability that you need. It certainly can be, having an emphasis on the interests that you as Black students represent, but you certainly can get allyship within your school in terms of addressing that within the student body. So, but Ms. Harris, what are you thinking there? You have a question for the young people?
A question and a comment. One of the things is, one of the young people mentioned when you talked about the incident in your school reminded me of an incident that I had in a workplace. So even though this is happening in your school setting, it also happens with us as adults in our workplace. But with my situation, it was with Black History Month. Long story short, rather than having a celebration for Black History Month, they wanted to call it diversity celebration. And this is a thing where it's making white people uncomfortable with talking about Black History Month or Black Lives Matter, and they want to call it something else. So when you said that about your school setting, I wondered if the conversation, the problems that you had, did it start before the Black Lives Movement Matter or Black Lives Matter movement, before the riots, before the protests, before George Floyd, or is it something all of a sudden did it happen after all those incidents, after all these things are now taking place? Because a lot of times, and I'll say that and I'll let you answer, now all of a sudden, since we've had these things happening, everybody want to get on board with doing something to save face. They could be in it for the real reason, but the other part of it is for them to be in it just to say we did something, or we're covering ourselves, or we're covering our behinds, we're in this. And so I'm asking you, first part of my question, and you all can answer, Did these things happen after the movement? And if it did, what are they doing now? Well, you said they weren't doing anything, so that kind of answers that part of the question, but what can they do? What would you expect them to do differently at this point?
So I can start to answer that, and they can chime if they want.
Okay.
But this is something that the incident started around the beginning of last school year. And the year before that, we had talked about stuff like this, maybe in our chapels or maybe in our assemblies, but it wasn't really anything that nobody really made a big deal out of it because no big situation or anything had happened up until that incident. So when that incident hit, you had all different types. You had white students, black students, everybody coming in saying this is wrong, everybody going off about it. So when that incident happened, it was kind of like what's going on now. Everybody wants to jump on board. And that's where I feel like the purpose got lost that was going behind it, because maybe the first little bit was okay, but then it just got washed after, because the way we had it where we go talk about how we felt would be one group at this time, one group at this time. It was only on one day. And the girl just sat in the room the whole day. And it was just like group after group would just say how she felt. And my group was one of the last groups of the day. You could tell by the end she wasn't even paying attention. All she was doing was just repeating the same answers. And even the adults in there were basically, you could tell they were exhausted of it. And they just, after that, everything just faded away, by the point where maybe the next week she was going back to school like normal, to hang out with the same people she hung out with before. So it was almost like, it almost is like what is now, but I feel like our school is taking some of the right steps in the right direction, but we don't have the right people going behind it as an adult. Because us students have tried to do stuff before this incident, but I mean, within our school, our students don't have really much of a voice, because, and this is probably going a little off topic. I don't know if Savannah maybe can back me up on this, but within our school, anytime someone African-American or of any color tries to start something, it may be prevalent for maybe a month, maybe 2 months, but after 3 or 4 months, it just starts to fade away, because due to racial profiling from specific teachers or from other parents and of other students, of other Caucasian students that profile or say certain things about other African-American students, their determination and their fear of the whole purpose going away just starts to grow, and everything, all of a sudden, everything starts to fade away. And by that time, everything is lost.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Go ahead, Savannah.
I was just gonna say I agree with that. I'm having difficulties. My camera won't work anymore. But yeah, I agree with him. A lot of the time, like I said earlier, it's more about other kids' comfort levels, to where things that we say goes out the window, and so it a lot of time leaves us frustrated because we're not being heard. So it just causes a lot of issues.
Well, you know what, team? Let me ask you just this question again, back to this definition of politics, and I want to press on that with you all by asking this question: have you ever been or have heard that someone didn't get a job or didn't get an opportunity, didn't make a sports team, didn't get selected, and they kind of flippantly say, well, it was politics? Have you guys ever heard that? Right? Most of you, yeah, are nodding your head. Most of you. And so what I'm understanding from what you are framing up is consistent with this idea of resources and a process to determine who gets what resources. And politics happens everywhere, all the time, and it doesn't stop. It's an ongoing process. So in the context of you're saying that there are white students who they're more interested in that white student having their interests satisfied, where they, again, get sent home for a while, or, is out of the public space for a while, come back as if nothing happens. That student's feelings versus your feelings is an interest that you feel is being serve most. My encouragement is going to be that understand that the process itself never stops, that it's always ongoing. And just as much as you would expect and or hope for the adults or those who are in charge of the institutions, the pressing becomes more important for you to continue to press as an organizer, that I have interests that need to be satisfied. Voting is an outcome of an ongoing press to get your interests satisfied. And so just again, back to Asia's point of starting student clubs and I'm paraphrasing, or starting organizations. And then, my encouragement, and I want to ask Asia this, having done the silent march for solidarity early on, I think that was May, the last day in May, yeah, right? It was right one of the first sort of organized marches that we've had here in the city of Grand Rapids. I just want to ask, did you find yourself, Asia, as being a lead organizer? Did you find yourself sometimes lonely in regards to having those people who may talk a lot, who may say a lot, but when it comes down to execution, did you in any way find yourself wanting more people to lean in with you when it comes down to maybe planning and execution?
Honestly, no, I didn't feel lonely at all. I had the right people by my side during the whole planning. Since it was planned in 2 days. So it was just me and another girl, and we had an organization backing us, and we executed it. I didn't care if she backed out, I was still gonna do it. It was just the moment that it needed to be done, you know? So I never felt that. Even now, I don't feel that. I've met more people who feel the same way that I feel. So it's like better for me because I can conversate with them and we feel the same. We're still trying to plan things. So no, I haven't.
So even though with the small group, you said one other young person that was there with you mostly, how many people would you say was organizing and planning with you consistently that you could lean on and you could build with? How many people?
One.
And so this kind of gets to this point, even when we talk about the younger folks in terms of what their challenges are. And Kathy, please lean in here. But I've always found that regardless of how many people with a particular event or an activity takes place, it's really always a small handful of people who's going to keep it moving, who's going to make sure that they do not lose focus, and that they have outcomes that they're trying to reach. They end up, and in your case, Asia, there was 1,000 people. That's I think a great analogy to think about that, as you're saying, Asia, 2 people with some others, but 2 people that over a course of a few days, passionate, certainly sincere in wanting to have your voices heard, was able to organize and have 1,000 people come out. So that's a tribute to you and that other person, but your commitment and vision. That would be the encouragement, I think, for our high school students, is to know that often, and there's a quote, I don't know, Kathy, if you can find the quote by, I think, Margaret Mead, who says, never let it be said that one person can't make a difference, because truly that's how it's always done. Something, I'm paraphrasing the quote, but that would be some encouragement to young people. Go ahead, Kathy.
I'm sorry, I just want to add to that, because that was going to be the second part of my question. As you can see, there are a few of you that are here. It only takes a few to get something done. And I commend Asia for even having that vision, for wanting to proceed with her rally, with her protest, and with 1 or 2 people. And as Mr. Brown mentioned, it takes a few people to get something done. I mean, it only takes 1 or 2 people. But the few of you that are here, just know that a lot of people were invited, a lot of young people were invited. And I don't know whatever the reasons are. I mean, I'm sure they have other things to do, But I appreciate and commend you for taking the time to be here to answer the question, because it is a problem that we're having in today's society of getting our young people involved and getting the input for our young people and making things happen. Because, you know, myself and Mr. Brown are up there in another age bracket. I'm not calling us old, but we're up there. Well, our thoughts are not the same as yours, and we need your input to make things happen. And so that's why we're here today. We could do this again another time in another setting, but your input, your comments today will help us move forward. And I would like to ask you, your participation as we move forward to help us with these ideas, because we need that. We need your vision and we need your thoughts and your involvement, because it's hard reaching out. And this year is critical. This election is critical. And if we don't get our young people, those that are eligible to register to vote by November 3rd, they'll be 18 by November 3rd. If you know who they are, make sure they're registered. If you're not able to vote, you can always talk to somebody about voting. And that's why we need your vision to help us figure out what is it going to take to reach those young people that are not here on this call, the young people that are hanging out wherever they hang out during the week or on the weekends. We need to get them involved. They need to vote. And so we need their input. In order to make any changes, it starts with one person. In order to make any changes, it starts with one vote. And we need to put those two together, that one person and that vote, and we got to do something. So we need you. Again, I thank you. We can carry on with the conversation, but I had to say that point. And I will look up the quote and see if I can find it. Thank you.
Thank you. You know what? Often, young people often will, certainly from parents and teachers and administrators and those in your lives, we always have these stories that we tell, and sometimes we are not as relevant as we need to be with some of the urgencies that you face as young people. But I want to tell you a quick story that I do think is relevant from a time that I was in college, and I was a college athlete, and for 4 years, I put my time in for 4 years, and we didn't have any Black coaches in our athletic department. I was a college basketball player. Didn't have any Black assistant coaches. I knew that going in. We had one Black football coach, no Black athletic directors, no Black secretaries. I loved my college experience, but I saw an opportunity to advocate as a senior in college, particularly around this issue of book money. I just want to tell you that as a scholarship athlete, we expected to receive every penny that we were supposed to receive to buy our books. I'm a full scholarship athlete. The athletic director and the coaches were telling me that, hey, the administration does not have any more money. So for 4 years, books on average, in college, it might be $200 or $300 a semester. We're getting $50. And you can only imagine, what those of us who come from, modest means had to do, frankly, in order to find the material in order to stay on. And often it came down to us beg, borrowing, and stealing the resources so that we could overcome this $50 a semester that they were giving us for books. I waited for 4 years. And then what I did, because I didn't want them to take my scholarship from me, I then go to the administration and I tell the administration that I've organized a group on campus called Black Athletes United for the Modification of the Athletic Department, BAU MAD. And what I did to this point of age, I went to one of my buddies who was the star football player and another one of my buddies who was the star baseball player. We're all on the college campus, and I laid out to them an agenda. I said, look, I am going to advocate for us, and I need you to sign on. Tell me what it is that you think we should be advocating for. They say, Rob, we need a study table. We obviously need close to $200 a semester or more than this $50. We need some Black representation in terms of our staff. So I went to the vice president of the college, and I say to the vice president of the college, because again, it became the information and the resource piece. I say, hey, Mr. Vice President, my athletic director and coach says that we don't have enough money, and we've been doing this for 4 years, and I know my scholarship voucher says that I was supposed to, and every athlete who received a scholarship should have been receiving X amount of dollars. I'm not advising you young people to do this, but I'll tell you what I did. I told the vice president of the college that we are going to file a lawsuit retroactive to the year that the scholarship applications were produced. Because on the scholarship paper, it says full room, books, boards, and tuition. And so do you know, by the time I made it back to the gym to see my coach and my athletic director, they were waiting for me in the lobby of the gym. And they said to me, from that one move, and I said we're going to organize, and I said we were going to pursue some legal proceedings. And again, I'm not encouraging that from you, but we have to organize how we organize. Do you know, I get a big bear hug from the athletic director. He says, Rodney, thank you so much. I just got a call from the administration, and they're going to increase the book money to $150. That's not, again, giving you everything that you need, but it really was. It was, you know, me and a couple, to your point, Asia, a couple of my friends that we then, as I would, again, and encourage all of you to survey your friends to find out others, what do they need? What do they see? So then it's not just about you and your voice, you're legitimately speaking for others. So I just wanted to tell that story about the persistence often that is needed in order to get your voices heard. Let's see. Cabre, I got to hear, man. This is one of the things, bro. Say your name again, young man.
Caber.
I know I said Caber. Hey, when we do this, I absolutely have to make sure that we hear from everyone. And we've not heard from you yet. And I know you, and I could tell you're sitting back listening. Why don't you speak to anything that we've said? We'd love to hear your voice.
So I, of course, think what's like been happening on the news and over social media is wrong, but this isn't new. This has been happening for a long time. And I feel like since now we have this light shed on it, a lot more light than usual, and people are actually paying attention, I feel like we have to use this momentum to do more things like the protests that we did downtown. Because, well, we have the spotlight right now, and it's starting to die out, but we don't want that to happen, so, yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. You know what? Let's build on that. Let's build on that point. How can we, with the energy, Asia, you've created, I think all of you young people, Evan, certainly in terms of your work, what are some of the things that you're going to do to make sure that it doesn't die out, to make sure that your voice, you'll continue to push as young organizers, and to make sure that we as adults and those who are in these spaces are listening to you? What are some of the things that maybe based on some of our exchanges, but keeping hope alive, if not anything else? What are some of the things that you all are going to continue to push on? Evan?
I think there's a couple of things that can be done. I think kind of going off of the story of what you shared, I think it's important to make sure, see, like you handed yours with strategy. You came in and you knew that a lawsuit would hit them in a way that they had to create some action. You didn't just come in there tossing tables and saying, we ain't playing. You came in with some strategy. And I think for us, if we take that same principle and talk to the powers that are, that be, and sit down and try to have those conversations, I think that's where we'll see a lot of the change to things to continue to keep going, because they're able to implement policies. But I think the second thing, which I think sometimes is overlooked, is the importance of inspiring that next generation. I think that if us, as I'm a millennial, I know some others on this call aren't millennials, they're right under us, they're called, they're Gen Z, I don't know what their name is, I apologize, Savannah and Cabra. I don't know you guys' generational name, but it's important for us to reach back and inspire them so that they can continue on with this, because this isn't a 100-yard dash. This is definitely a marathon, and that baton does have to get passed on. And so just like we're able to listen to stories of what you did when, you know, in school, they should be able to see what we're doing and inspire them to continue to move, because they're not eligible to vote right now, some of them. And if we don't spark a fire in them that makes them want to vote, when I could not wait till it was my turn to vote. But I think I registered like either on my birthday or like the day after. Like I was really excited to do so, but that's because it was something that was talked a lot about in my area. And so, and I say my area, I mean as far as who I'm around, as far as my family and things like that. So I think it's important for us to inspire that next generation, those people that are right under us, so that when it is their time to have the platform, that they look forward to it and that they do it with some fervor and some zeal.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Evan. Evan, you spoke to something. Kathy and I were having a conversation even earlier, preparing for the idea of the generations, right? And so I've understood, and I'm trying to get better about understanding, you know, the lineage, if you will, that we start with the greater generation, the boomer generation. Then Kathy and I, maybe Dan, I don't know if Dan is a millennial or not, but Generation X, then the millennial generation, and then Generation Z. Is that what your generation is called, younger people? Generation Z? Is that it? Mostly? Is that what they tag y'all with?
Yes, Z.
Yeah, Z. You know what? I tease you all, and my students being an educator, you know, my kids being your age as well. And I call you the microwave generation. No offense, Savannah, but I just say you're the microwave generation because you want everything now and you want it immediately, because that's what you've been conditioned to. You know, I think the first generation, it could have been millennials as well, could have been the first generation that did all technology, but certainly the so-called Generation Z, all you've known is technology, which brings an immediacy, which goes back to that first point that I made when people, you know, talk about that the generation doesn't know. I think you're one of the most informed generations that we've seen, because the immediacy of information that come to you. Now, doesn't mean that we can't be more strategic, as the young millennial Evan talked about, you know, or more research, or more measured, if you will, you know, that those in Generation X might want. But how do you respond to that? That an old person like me, a couple generations over you, would call you the microwave generation. Savannah, you thought that was funny. Are y'all the microwave? Do you want it all right now, including change?
I mean, I think that's a funny thing, because I can say, like, me and Christian talked a lot about our school issues, and we did want to see like immediate changes. And there's a lot of people upset that things weren't changing instantly. And I can say even with like the Black Lives Matter movement and things that are happening right now around our area, I know me and a group of people, including Christian, are like trying to be advocates and are constantly posting things and trying to get awareness out there. And a lot of people have stopped posting stuff because results weren't happening the way they wanted it to. So since it wasn't an instant result, they kind of gave up on it. So I guess I agree. A lot of the time we can be like that. So
that's really bad. That's really interesting. Asia, what do you think about that?
I think it's completely true. I see it because I have a 16-year-old niece, and she wants things right now. When she says it, if you don't get it, then it's over and done with, you know, attitude. Yeah. And I see it because when this movement started, everybody was out, everybody was posting things, and all on Facebook, you can see it. It was every other post, Black Lives Matter, this and that. But now the momentum is down. It's like a couple of posts here and there from the same people. So I do feel that. I do feel like the younger generation, I feel like they lose their their health a little.
Yeah, and let me just be clear. I said that with no judgment and no umbrage, against the
Hmm.
generation. Like, I love the energy. I really do, and I think that energy is important. And then if you reflect back, we were all even though we didn't come up on technology like you all, what youthfulness speaks to an urgency, and it's always been that. And if you reflect back on a lot of the organizers from decades ago, they had the same sense of urgency. So my encouragement, and then Evan, I certainly want to hear your feedback. But my encouragement would be you're challenged by, I would assess some consistency around this focus that you have, because it still speaks to immediacy. Then you're used to seeing so many different things, and then you're on to the next. But you know what? Learn from your ancestors, and learn from your elders, and learn from Evan as a millennial, where he makes the point to say that this is not a sprint. That this is a marathon. And I'm always frankly humbled by thinking about those who overcome so much more than me. So I come up in the 80s, Kathy, we come up in the 80s, and, so we may have had, I'll give you my little story about my college thing. Hey, when I think about those who had to overcome through certainly through mid-Atlantic slave trade, then through slavery, then through Reconstruction, then through segregation, then through, the times now of implicit and unconscious bias, and the microaggressions that Black people are facing in every institution. I really do reflect back on, come on now, you're tougher than that. Like the people who came before you had to overcome a lot more than what you had to overcome. So that would be some of the encouragement that I'd ask you all to sort of think back on relative to voting, but certainly in terms of being persistent with getting your voice heard. And I think that it does kind of go back to even when we're all infants, in that an infant is gonna cry until you address that infant. And that's a natural reaction of a baby who doesn't have a voice. Now, the parallel to me would be that you, us, that we continue to organize whereby you're gonna hear us, our voice is gonna be heard. We're not gonna jump around from issue to issue. We want to be acknowledged now, but again, let's be strategic about it. Evan, you were gonna add.
Yeah, there's a couple things that you said that I think are great that I want to just kind of highlight or underline. I think the interesting thing about the generation right under us, Gen Z, you're right. They're the generation that grew up with wireless internet. I remember plugging in the phone line and hearing the noise. I couldn't get on the internet with someone's phone. So I grew up with that first, and then we got wireless. But this next group, all they had was touchscreen phones. They don't know what a flip is. So, but I think, and so I would agree that the way that their brains are wired and the way that they seek information, retain information is completely different. They're used to getting it in 160 characters or less. So they don't like the verbose rhetoric. It's okay, what are you trying to tell me? Just spit it out. So like those statuses and those tweets on a short level, but then that attention span, you're right, is quick. If Facebook gets boring, you slide to Instagram, then you slide to Twitter, you slide to Snapchat, and those are all a time thing. But I think with the proper nurturing, that will be the generation that gets to see the change that we've all been fighting for, because they have a tenacity that the rest of us don't have. I think back to, and I know the movie Selma was 100% historically accurate, but I think back to the conversation that was had in the Oval Office, and I think it was President Johnson who was saying, okay, well, wait, we need to do this first, and then we will get to your Voter Rights Act, and then we'll get to this. And they were just like, no, we're not going to wait. We can't wait. If you wait, we're marching. So you choose. You're either going to get all of us on your grass, or you're going to, sign this paper. And I think that that's the generation, that tenacity of that lack of patience that they have, and that instant gratification. I think if it's geared the right way and it's mentored, I think that that will be the generation that we see that really, really pushes that change, because they want to see that change happen. But using the analogy that you used about a baby, I think the danger or the caution with that as well is I have a 7-month-old son. And so that analogy hit home for me, because babies have a voice and they cry loud and they cry hard. And if you don't, because they don't have the words or the maturity yet to articulate their needs, they're just crying and making noise, right? And so we are fumbling, trying to figure out what they want just to get them to stop crying. So instead of them being able to articulate what's happening, we're just fumbling trying to figure it out. And we're seeing the same thing happen with us, because so much of what's being seen is the loud crying, the looting, the tearing stuff up, as opposed to the articulation of our needs. Instead of actually making a systemic change, they're changing logos to syrup, and they're changing the voice actors to cartoons. And while those things are great, while it's nice to have a bottle, we need our diaper changed. We don't, you're just giving us something to pacify, and that's not what we're asking for. But that's because we did not articulate efficiently. I think one of the biggest difference between the movement now and the movement in the past is we had very visible and strong leadership. We knew who John Lewis was. We knew who Dr. King was. We knew who Malcolm X was. We knew who Marcus Garvey was. We knew W.E.B. Du Bois. We knew all of these people who had a voice and it was established and respected. But right now, I can't list you some leaders on a national level that can speak for us, that we are all following. And so I think because we lack that organization, they're just trying to appease that crying baby by putting a toy in the face or trying to do something for our community, when that's not really what we asked for in the first place. So I agree that it's an instant gratification generation, but I think that tenacity that they have is what's going to get the attention to make that change. But we have to do our job as the generations ahead to say, okay, we know that you have the voice and you have the strength. We just got to help mold that so that we can really see the systemic change that we're really looking for.
Yes. Evan, thank you so much.
No problem.
Let me say that two things to that, Evan. And this is an acknowledgement of something that I learned from an elder, Mr. Kyle Edward Smith, who spent time in Grand Rapids, had a newspaper called the Organizer newspaper. And he taught me two things. Well, so much more, but was a mentor. And he told me two things that I live by more, but certainly these two things that I think are relevant. One is that those that have the power to define, they have the power to determine. Those that have the power to define have the power to determine. So in terms of that piece that you're talking about, Evan, and the work that you did, Asia, and what you're doing, younger people, our high school students, that you are responsible for defining your effort. Because if you define it versus someone else define it, you will best determine the outcome. But then this other piece, some strong encouragement to each of you. Mr. Smith also told me when I was doing some, kind of organizing political stuff, and he says, even when I was, like in high school, and then when I got out of high school, he basically just reinforced. He says, hey, you got to understand, you're only going to be as good as your advisors. You're only going to be as good as your advisors. And so that energy that you have, younger generation, make sure that you go and talk to people and create this feedback loop, because you're going to be accountable for the decisions that you make as a voice for a generation or for a group. But don't just with all of us as adults, when we come with our irrelevant stories sometimes, and, we might be a little corny, or, y'all don't even use the word corny. We might just be irritating, right? Because we always saying something. No, really take the time to listen and temper your, I call it ambition, and to a degree, humble yourselves to know that there are people who have some experience that can help to inform you on decisions that you make right now. You know, often the best advisors are our parents, often, particularly our moms. You know, and our moms generally, no one wants more for us than our moms. And so I don't know if you have those types of relationships. For me, it was my grandma mostly, but my mom as well. And there was nothing I couldn't go. I learned politics from my mom. Kathy knows my mom was a 37-year General Motors employee. And I would talk politics with her as a kid. But then as I got into more, you know, real organizing, I would still always go back to mom. Ma, what do you think? This is what I'm thinking. And again, she'll say, you know, you got a right to think what you think. You're going to be accountable for the decision you make, but here's some feedback. So that'll be some strong encouragement, which goes back, Christian, Savannah, Cabre, around that question of who is in the school that you can talk to, because maybe they can't move the mountain that you want moved, but they can provide some insights to you on what your next steps need to be. And so when we're talking about organizing, I just want to give that strong encouragement to stay connected to, for if it's Generation Z, stay connected to the millennials. The millennials stay connected to Generation X. We, again, are still connected to boomers. And if you have the ability to go and talk to any elder, take that time to do that and ask those questions. This is how I'm feeling. So that's not a bad thing that your school helped you to process feelings. That's not a bad thing that they would talk with you about feelings, but we all know that we have to get past feelings. Now we're looking for a practical solution and objective that we're trying to meet. So that's just some encouragement to all of you, is to use us and others as advisors to you in your efforts. And, you know, the bottom line is that we have to do it together, young people. This is as critical of an election cycle that we've ever faced. I'm really hoping that each of you in your sphere of influence, it's called, that you have 18-year-old friends that are eligible to vote, that you ask them as friends to get registered. I know Mrs. Harris and her team is proactive, are doing events leading up to certainly the general election, and have already done some things to get folks registered. So that'll be a strong encouragement as well, that you check and see if your friends are registered to vote, and ask them to be registered even before you start telling them who to vote for. You know, just or even if you are not unpacking or deconstructing issues in the local community, at least start with asking your friends in your peer group, are you registered to vote? Hey, we're moving into the 8 o'clock hour. And we're going to take a little more time, maybe a couple questions, share some other thoughts. I don't know if we have any questions in the chat. I'm going to check on that. No questions in the chat. Kathy, I don't know if you had another question or comment for our young people right now, but we're going to be moving towards a close.
Okay, thank you. This has been an awesome talk or discussion. I first want to, this is going to be my final statement. First, I want to start with Asia and commending you again on your work that you did with starting this movement in Grand Rapids. I don't know if there was a rally before yours on that day, but was yours the first one on that day? You said there were several going on?
It was, I don't know what they were doing, but
Okay.
before ours, it was a little one with like, Robert S. was there, but it wasn't a big one. And I think the NAACP was there too. And then ours followed.
Okay. Well, whoever was first, your name was the one that I remember being out there, and your work was successful. You got the message that you were trying to make that day. You made that, and I commend you for that. Don't give that up. I have your name and number, and I will be talking to you about some more work that needs to be done in the community. So again, thank you. The two young men that I just met, Christian and Cabre, on Saturday, these two young men speak fluent Spanish. and they were awesome. In a volunteer program that we had on, we're registering people to vote at an event, and they came right on board with their parents. And as a family, it was awesome to see the family coming together on a volunteer event. And I commend these two young men, especially young Black men, doing these things in the community, doing something positive and speaking Spanish. You were awesome. So, you know, I already told you, you're on my list to help me. And Savannah, you're on my list as well. You're from the college tour. All of you, I just commend you. You're being young people in the community. We need you. So thank you again for your help, your support today, Saturday, last week when you had the march and whenever all that happened. And Evan, thank you. Thank you so much for what you do. You had a program and COVID stepped in and had to change your plans. But whatever, we have to come up with a way to get out in the community and do something, taking COVID in mind, staying safe, using our PPE, whatever needs to happen. We need to get together to make that happen. And so your work and what you do and the new baby and everything else, congratulations on the new baby. But thank you again for your work. Dan, thank you for your help as well. Dan is active in the community and he's out there trying to do the right thing and to help us out as well. We all got to work together, and it's a learning curve for everybody. No matter who you are, where you came from. If we don't start learning each other and start working together, this problem is going to continue. So we have to start somewhere. So we're starting with this message. We will be posting this on, all I know is Facebook. Dan's going to have to help me with the other social media. You all going to have to help me as well. Share it with your friends beyond Facebook. I don't know where it goes. I don't understand Twitter. I don't understand what's the other one? The Instagram. That's over my head. But somebody's going to help me get there. But in the meantime, we want to make sure that this message is out there, and we will do everything we can to continue this, to keep this going. We're going to need your help with some more planning. So I will be contacting all of you. I have everybody's email and phone number, including yours, Savannah. I still got it. All right. And Mr. Brown, I can't thank you enough for moderating this event. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm done talking. It is after 8 o'clock. So I will let you take it through the final questions and comments. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mrs. Harris. And again, a big shout out to Kathy Harris and her team with Proactive and the work that you do to inform the electorate and to get, people registered and informed about the issues. Thank you so much. And again, it's an honor to be here talking to you young people. Hey, we're going to wrap it up then by, if you would all give us sort of an exit ticket, about, what is a takeaway from our discussion today. Certainly, what is something that you can go back within your spheres of influence and share. And I know that point of, I think it was Evan making about inspiration. What can you do? Don't underestimate that your peers are as well inspired by your work. Elders and people who are older age, we're inspired by you and your work and your vision and commitment. Certainly, it was beautiful, and the persistence that you showed, and even I remember seeing you on the news. That was a dramatic, and I thought you did such a great. I was so proud to just watch you, really. So after all of the stuff kind of kicks off downtown, I see you on the news talking. I said, look at that young sister organizing and leading. That's a beautiful thing. So that inspired me. So never take that for granted, that your work and your young people at the high school certainly continue to work and believe in yourselves and inspire others. And Evan, best of everything, man, with your upcoming events. I can tell you're going to continue to organize. So, as we wrap up, could you all, just starting with Asia, please just give us a few minutes of some takeaways, and what are you going to take back to your peer group?
I learned a lot. Well, I love this conversation. I like conversations like this in general. I'm going to take back that our kids need to be heard. Our younger generation, Gen Z, needs to be heard more, and they want change as well as we do. Even though they don't say it like we do, they want the same things as we do. So Christian, Cabray, Savannah, if you ever need someone to talk to, my name is Asia R. St. Tart on Facebook. You can write me and we can conversate whatever, about anything, about your school, whatever. We can conversate, we can get something done.
Thank you, Asia.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Who wants to go next? Savannah? What are some takeaways? What are you going to take back to your sphere of influence?
I know for me, we've been really working on, me and a group of girls have been working on contacting like principals in our area, and like identifying issues that we've seen throughout quarantine and a little bit before that. And so I think the feedback that you guys gave me about how not to think of the like bigger picture and try to slowly work for change. And I think those are really good takeaways. And also that that little things can make a big difference. And like she was, one person can make a big change. So I think that's just inspirational to know. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Let's go, Christian. What you got for us? And then we come back up, Ray. What you got, Christian?
So kind of going off Savannah said, but basically, like you said, trying to find someone that we can trust in our school to maybe give us advice to take the next step that might not move the mountain, but start getting the ball moving in the right direction.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Good stuff. Cabray, what you got, man?
I'm going to be taking away quite a lot from this conversation. Just overall, like knowing now that, you know, every single change starts with one person and one idea. So
That's right.
Say that I don't know what I can do, but if I have an idea, I can still make something happen is going to be pretty good to know moving forward.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Absolutely. Evan, take us home.
Sure. I would say one of the biggest takeaways for me today is just that reminder that everybody has a role to play. And I know it feels like a game, and it's unfortunate that our lives and the way that we're perceived in our society has to be attributed to a game. But if I did attribute it to a game, it would be chess, because there are multiple pieces, and some of those pieces have limitations. The pawns can't move as many times as the bishop can, but the bishop can only move in a certain direction. And I think it's important for us to identify what our piece is on the board, what we can do, and then do that to the fullest and support other people. So I may not be an organizer like Asia is, but I might be able to inspire at that event that Asia is having. So just knowing what your piece is on the board and helping to play so that we can get that checkmate, I think is very, very important. So thank you guys for the opportunity and this platform for us to converse.
Absolutely. Thank you, Evan. Hey, Dan, do you have anything, our tech guy over there who organizes as well? You got anything for us?
I just thought it was a really great conversation. I really enjoyed listening to everybody's points of views and seeing many new leaders come up and who have been part of this. I mean, to me, big moment in history, and I hope it only continues and just, and like you mentioned, Rodney, staying with it and keeping it going, I feel is very important. And I think there are a lot of good points in how we can, people can do that, that were made on here.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Dan. Hey, my takeaway is that I'm inspired by you all, and I want to stay inspired. So my last statement will be inspired. Be inspired. Keep it moving. Keep working. And you know what? Let Kathy and I know, especially Kathy, if there's ways that we can build with you together. If you are, hit with a bit of inspiration, email Kathy and let her know and say, hey, I want to carry on this conversation. I have some others that I want to bring to the table. I want to do it this way. Can you work with me in order that we build these platforms together? So again, Thank you so much, young people. I'm really grateful to hear your voices, and you do inspire me. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kathy, as well. Good job, everyone. We're going to be exiting now. You guys be safe out there. Mask up, 6 feet, right? Mask up, 6 feet. All right. Peace, everybody. God bless.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you all. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.